This is Bob Clarkson. Is that so? There's a scripture that was quoted yesterday at a funeral of a very prominent man, an influential man in our community. And it's actually been a verse I have probably quoted to myself more than every other scripture, and it just really struck me at the funeral. And it's Isaiah 26:3. And it says, God will keep those in perfect peace, whose minds are stayed on him. And I began to develop this habit of quoting that verse to myself when I'd start to get a little bit anxious or stressed. And now it's almost like saying thank you or good morning. It's just pretty common for me. And I find that it really is kind of it's like a salve that heals any wound. It's like, and of course the wounds are the stress and the anxiety and the frustration and the worry and all those things that go on. So I wanted to start with that, and here's a thought I want to ponder here with this verse. What does it mean for your mind to be stayed on God? Well, stayed means fixed or set or focused or fully trusting or consumed or confident. So it's not just a casual awareness that God's in my life and he's watching what's going on, or he might somehow help me out. It's like having a fixation, a consistent awareness. Now it's kind of like, I've related in the past, it's kind of like a marital relationship. When you're thinking about your most significant other person, a lot of your day parts when you're doing other things that have nothing to do with her or him, and it's like, all right, I still am very often aware of that most significant person. And I can do the same thing with God. That even though he's a spirit, when I'm thinking about my spouse when she's not with me, I'm thinking about the spirit of the woman. And okay, I have this visual image of what she looks like, and we don't have that with God, but it doesn't matter what he looks like. It's what does he feel like? My wife didn't always look the same. She was a knockout when I first married her, and she wasn't all that much of a knockout when we got to be old. Neither am I. Neither are you. But the problem is, my anxiety and other stresses and fears and guilt came from losing sight of a vision or a thought about someone that took my mind off of the current stress. Okay, often I would use my most significant other. I now use God more than anything. So what's our problem? Where is our mind and what is it thinking about? Well, we'll go back to the four-part diagram that Jesus described about our being in the image of God. Spirit, soul, mind, and body. And this verse is about the mind being consumed or focused on God. And that's critical to understand why he talks about our mind being focused on him. We typically don't focus our emotions. They're just a byproduct of what we choose to believe and how those beliefs are then responded to by other people and how they treat us and about what we believe. So again, our beliefs then trigger our feelings when they are either affirmed and embraced or when they're rejected and we're disgraced. And then our thoughts kick in. What do we do with this feeling? I want this feeling to go away. I either have to drive those people away, fight, or I have to run away myself, flight, or some other accommodation. And then, of course, the thoughts then lead to this plan, which are my expressions. So we're driven by our emotions, which are activated by our minds. These are the actions we take. And our minds conjure up plans based on the information we consider in the mix. So let's kitchenize this thing. I love being in the kitchen. I love cooking. And I'm halfway decent at it. I make some pretty gourmet stuff. And I'm usually cooking just for me, but I can have a simple but elegant, really delicious meal just for me. So our minds conjure up plans based on information we consider in the mix. So remember, like a recipe, you can only craft a plan for the meal, which uses the ingredients that you have available. Okay, so let's go there. So where do I get the ingredients for my plan? Something has happened, and my can is kicked over, and I'm frustrated, I'm stressing, I'm agitated. Well, so I go to my supplies closet where my kitchen tools are, or a tool shed if it's a more generic project, not kitchen related, and I also consider my available assistants. Who could help me do this? Maybe I need more information about the recipe. I forgot to write down how many minutes you cook it and how temperature, that kind of thing. So anyway, there are 3 resources we typically go to. But peace, which is what we're talking about in the first place, is a state of emotional tranquility. Okay, the goal is whatever's happening, which might normally trouble me or agitate me, I want to be at peace about this thing instead of worried and anxious or guilty or whatever. So the plan that I'm going to come up with, or the recipe, must be achievable, it must include the appropriate ingredients to achieve peace. In this case, we're trying to get to peace, even in troubled circumstances. Well, peace almost doesn't apply anytime else, because if we're not troubled, we're at peace anyway. It's just kind of a state of rest, but we're mostly not in that state because there's always something going on that's bumping into us and disturbing us. So our ingredients have to match the plan. I have to have the right ingredients to make that particular recipe. I have to have the right ingredients in the mix in a personal, spiritual, emotional person sense. So peace is unachievable unless the ingredients are right to get there. Well, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but let's continue the idea. I go to my supplies closet, which contains my current beliefs. Well, I'm going to solve this thing, and those beliefs could be, the tool shed contains my current information. So what do I know, and what do I believe are significant pieces, and then the resources are the ones I trust to do it right or to help me do it right. Okay, well, we all have kind of a pattern. Anxiety, stress, fear, agitation come from uncertainty. There's a peace that comes with certitude. There's a peace that comes with being certain about how things are going to work out. Sometimes that creates the opposite of peace if the certainty is that the outcomes are not going to be something I really want to happen. I don't want those results. So talking about the supplies, the tools, the assistants, as it were, unfortunately, we usually resort to our current stores. The people I currently know, the information I currently hold in my head, and the beliefs that I have about what do I even want to happen here, or how do I want it to turn out, the results I'm shooting for. So I want to consider this. In a sense, then, peace is achieved only by trust. Okay, I trust that things are going to work out just fine. That brings down the anxiety and the agitation and all that shaking. Who do I trust? And what do I trust them to do? In brief, it boils down, in my life situations, it's mostly about the personal relationship stuff that's causing all this frustration, agitation, misery. So we'll kind of move it into the personal context. It boils down to expectations. I expect a certain result. When I go to a prayer meeting, I pray for somebody's cancer to go away. I pray for somebody's healing. I pray for somebody to get a good grade on a test. I pray for, there's all sorts of kind of selfish things, but it's pretty normal at a prayer meeting. So my expectation is that the result should be, if you're sick, you get well, and so on. But my unmet expectations always disturb my peace. So if I get my hopes up, my expectations that God's going to do this a certain way, and it doesn't happen that way, usually I get even more frustrated and agitation. Well, why didn't you answer my prayer the way I asked it? Well, that forces me to go back to the drawing board and think about this. Are my expectations about what results I'm trying to achieve in whatever this experience is that's got me shaken, are my expectations realistic or fantastic? Usually I go to the fantasy of what I want it to look and feel like, what I want the result to be. In case of praying for someone's sickness to be healed, that's one of the most normal prayers I ever hear, or one of the most often prayers I ever hear. Heal this guy. Well, what causes the disturbance of my peace? Well, it could be accidents or storms, sickness, inebriation, and I'm driving drunk or whatever, carelessness, I'm just loosey-goosey and bumping into things and causing carnage all around like a bull in a china shop, disagreements with other people and their opinions, or dealing with bullies. It could be bullies in the schoolyard or bullies in the political front. Bullies that say, we got to go to war whether we want to or not. The guys who are in the fields in the Ukraine war are there because bullies at a higher level forced this war because Russia attacked Ukraine, and so we got soldiers on both sides that are being manipulated by the bullies who are their heads of state. But anyway, so all these things can disturb our peace. So then, what do we do to get back to peace, especially when we're talking about emotional peace? Well, there are 4 sources of resources that are like promises that God makes, promises that our family makes, promises our friends will make, and promises of others. And some are good, and some aren't. So step back for a minute and take notice of your order of priorities in trust. Here's the usual sequence. I trust myself first, and then I trust my family after that, and then I might trust my friends after that, and then other people after that, particularly professionals. And often, the last thing we do is read the instruction manual. We flit around, flop around, dink around, can't get the thing together, and finally we read the instructions. And my first source should maybe be the professionals instead of myself, or the professionals instead of my friends. And God is one of those professionals. He's just a professional at a different level, and actually a higher level. But notice how quickly or frequently our mindset, my mind is set, my mind is stayed, and it begins and ends with the physical resources at my disposal. Okay. Because what's happening to me is happening in the physical realm. It's disturbing me, but I got to fix it in the physical realm to cause it to stop my agitation or stress or whatever. And it usually fails to even consider that God might have a purpose in this thing that I'm obsessing about and stressing about and trying to stop from happening. And that actually reflected back on my prayer life. I'm thinking, man, a lot of my prayers for a lot of years were about take away the problem. Just take away the problem. And I missed a lot of opportunities to learn some things because all I was focused on was praying away the problem and then giving God a good grade if he said yes to taking the problem away. But then another one like it's going to come up. And it's like, it's a never-ending cycle. It's going to keep coming back. So have you considered how often you are sure that yours are best, that your ideas, your plans, or at least that they're sufficient to the situation? Well, I used to teach, and I would apologize to all the people I taught this to if I could reach out to them now. I used to teach, hey, when you encounter something, you're supposed to use your common sense, your intellect, and your own abilities to try to solve it. That's what's being responsible as an adult. And then if all of your own abilities are not able to solve the problem, then ask God to jump in and he'll do the almighty miraculous stuff. Well, man, did I shortchange a lot of people teaching that or believing it myself. For 40 years, I was really shortchanging my own understandings of what God really could do and how I could face every situation with absolute peace and tranquility, no matter how disturbing it was in the physical realm. Tornadoes, hurricanes, car wrecks, you name it. So consider this. Are the results you desire even appropriate? Well, if I'm wanting a desire that is totally inappropriate, almost totally impossible to occur, but I'm still going to be upset if I don't get it, well, I'm just throwing myself into the blades of the fan. But even if you solve this particular dilemma or problem and get it solved so that you're back to this place of tranquility, there will be more coming soon, coming to a theater near you. That theater is your own life. Oh, you're on the stage. Here comes again. So we have very little control over anything. That will always be true. Even the most powerful people we know don't control everything. There's a lot of things out of their control. We've got a war going on right now that's pretty large and in charge of the whole world is watching this with bated breath. So I can assure you that also you believe many things that aren't even true. How are you going to solve problems with the wrong ingredients, the wrong tools, and the wrong professional advice? Well, one of these beliefs is that God does everything that's good and Satan does everything that's evil. Not true. Now, I don't know how I came to believe that or why I taught that for decades. Because God says in his word, I create evil. He says in his word, I wound and I heal. He says in his word, I kill and I make alive. These are quotes directly from the Bible. But I'm teaching something that is completely contrary to what the Bible actually says. God is not limited to doing good, bad, or indifferent by anything I say or say his character requires of him. God made it all. He can do whatever he wants with it. And he has a purpose for evil. And actually, we are the source of the evil. When God created the first angel, he created the potential for evil, because evil is when two beings who have their own independent wills engage in conflict. Everything was fine until Lucifer decided to be God, fight God, be in conflict with God, and then God cast him out with about a third of the angels, I understand from Scripture. And it's like, okay, he made Satan, Lucifer, who committed the first evil conflict with God himself. Now, if even the angels do it, who started out in the presence of God, it's no wonder we, finite beings down here who've never seen God's heaven and the glories that are there, if angels who had been there decided to create a conflict. So evil is not a force outside of you or outside of me. Evil is anytime I create a conflict with someone else. Now, it takes two to fight. I could try to start a conflict, and somebody would say, no, I'm not going to do that. Just, we'll talk later. Or we can engage. But the evil is the denigration or the desecration, or shall I say even the destruction of relationship. Now, God doesn't break relationships with us. We're the ones that do the breaking. He always loves us until we reach a point where we can actually tell him to buzz off, and he will honor that and never bother us again. That's something we can do. But here's the secret to success in terms of peace. God's purposes are not like yours and not like mine. Well, what does that mean, Bob? What does that mean? Well, God's purpose in creating you and me and everyone that's on the earth and the angels, all beings that have personalities, was God is love. God is a spirit. Spirit is a loving thing, or loving is a spiritual thing. And so God created us in his image to be lovers. But to be lovers, we had to have the capacity to make a choice to say yes to someone who wanted to be in relationship with us and vice versa. And every relationship is a two-persona choice. I choose you to be my friend. I'm offering that right now, never having met you, and I will not withdraw the offer as long as I live. But unless you decide, hey, I want to be Bob's friend for whatever your reason, and say yes, we won't have a relationship. God does the offering all the time. Are we really interested enough to participate and say yes? So your peace will forever hinge on these things: the measure of your trust in the perfection, the power, the wisdom, and most importantly, the love of God in every possible way, in every situation or circumstance you face, in every experience. God has a reason why I totaled my wife's car. He showed me those reasons after the fact. Unfortunately, I was already in a place spiritually that I didn't complain when it happened, because I'd already said, okay, I know you've got something going on here. I just want to wait until you reveal to me what this means and what you want me to do with it. And I've had myriad opportunities to use that to the glory of God over and over again, that I'm walking alive and that wreck looked like there's no chance the driver survived. So, but our frustration follows the disappointment of people, places, and happenings not meeting my expectations. So I stopped trusting the people and my friends and my professionals, and I stopped trusting myself. And I decided to cast all my cares on him, 1 Peter 5:7. I decided to actually put him number one in my mind. My mind stayed on him. What is his purpose? And tranquility comes very quickly. Now, when the wave hits me in the face and knocks me down, I recoil like every other being. That'll always be the case. But now I get up very quickly and start looking for what was behind the wave, or what's ahead of the wave, or why God had me in that wave. And how can I bring glory to him by my response to that wave? So when my trust is absolutely perfect, that God is always absolutely loving, I can be at peace all the time, because even his discipline, he may be trying to, correct me and steer me. It's not punishment. Jesus paid all the punishment. But he'll give me the steerage because he loves me. He wants me to be the best guy I can be. And the bottom line is, peace comes from that verse. God will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is totally focused on him, because we trust him. I don't ask for results anymore. I rarely pray for healing. I pray for wisdom to know what God's purpose is in the disease or the sickness. And if he wants to heal miraculously to shock the docs, that's cool with me. If he doesn't want to take it away, but he wants my attitude when I'm the cancer patient to be so sweet on Jesus that there's not the slightest hint of me being unhappy with God about what he's caused to happen to me. This is Bob Clarkson. I hope this helps you find the peace that you desire.